Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Let's Talk Podcast, a podcast for human skills and mindset. If you're wondering, it seems a different setup. It is. I've been in a different location, but still, I don't want to miss this particular communication and discussion with my esteemed guest here. So I'll do nevertheless, and have that uncomfortable situation of being outside your studio and record something. So I hope everyone would still appreciate that as you always does and did in the past. So today, let me start you with a quote. The most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of the entire generation that is to come. Steve Jobs. Storytelling is so much important in any aspects of your life, whether you talk to your kids, whether you talk to your parents, whether you talk to in any way in the corporate environment, or anything in terms of conveying your message or persuasion in any field. If you talk to all the leaders, they always say that storytelling is such important. And if you have seen in my earlier podcast, if you have observed that we always and I always give an example that why we like movies, because there's a story about a particular flow, there's antagonist, there's protagonist, there's a particular flow of these stories which people would like to associate with, and that it really resonate with them. So that being said, today we are talking to one of the gentlemen who is an excellent storyteller and a true leader, uh, and I would like
Thank
to
you.
welcome him. So, Sukumar Rajagopal, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you for those kind words, Saurabh. Excellent.
Definitely. A bit about yourself, if I may. So, you are founder and CEO of Tiny Magic, which I'll will try to discuss what exactly Tiny Magic is all about. You were a senior vice president and CIO of Cognizant Technology Solutions. Back in the day, you also rated by Huffington Post as one of the top 100 social CIOs in 2013 and 14. And you were also a part of the first batch of 200 top creators from LinkedIn Creators Accelerator program in India. You've been to Wharton as well. And it's I'm not done yet. I think you are also a traveler, blogger, fitness enthusiast, and one thing which really intrigued me is about you research a lot in Indus Valley civilization. So maybe I'll I'll start with that. What's so special about Indus Valley civilization, which you are so intrigued and research about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it around 2007, I think. I by then I was already 3 years into my blogging
Mhm.
experience, and I learned that. I mean, I'm sure as a child I've come across pictures of the Great Bath and the dancing girl and famous pictures from the Indus Valley that I've seen. But I hated history as a child, like
Mhm.
many children in my peer group. So I didn't pay attention. But suddenly I started developing an interest in history, and learned that the writings that have been left behind by the Indus Valley civilization are yet to be deciphered.
Mm.
Indus Valley civilization, in terms of its capabilities and prosperity and its achievement, it ranks on a par at least with the Sumerian, the Egyptian, and the other major civilizations of its time. So, Indus Valley is the only one amongst that august list of civilizations whose script has not been deciphered.
Wow.
So, I have been working on this decipherment project for the last 15 years as a volunteer, and I have published 4 papers so far.
Mm.
And so far, I have managed to decipher, if I can make that claim. It has not been fully accepted by the scientific community. My peer group is still reviewing this, that I have managed to decipher one C.
Mm.
And so far, nobody has even fully deciphered even one C and has accepted by everybody. There are a lot of decipherment claims, but No one has successfully managed to convince the entire community even about one seal. And these seals are 1 inch by 1 inch.
Hmm.
They are very small. And there are like 13,300 odd inscriptions written in these small seals. So this is what we are trying to decipher.
Wow. So I think what you mentioned, that it seems that uh, you are totally intrigued and interested in deciphering these, I would say, manuscripts as well, right? Like what exactly they have written over there, what exactly it means. And for the people who may not know Indus Valley civilization, I think this is towards the west part of the southern Asia, which is like a part in right now Pakistan, and a part in India. And I think it was uh, how much, like 1500 BC or something, uh,
Yeah,
civilization.
so the peak period of Indus Valley, which is called the mature Harappan period, is 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE.
Wow. Okay.
Approximately around that time, it mysteriously collapses
Hmm.
around 1800 BCE or so. The why they collapsed is not very clear. There are a lot of hypotheses,
Hmm.
but there is no singularly accepted reason for its collapse amongst the Indus researchers. That
Got it.
itself is a mystery. So why did they collapse? They had all these advanced things,
Hmm.
and they left behind a writing which none of us can read. So it's very exceptionally hard project, which is the kind of problems I like to tackle. I call them seemingly impossible problems.
Got it. So, does this translate to your other aspects of your life? Because what I've seen, like some people who are very much interested in history, they're also interested in a lot of data and analytics because they try to kind of think about future in terms of what happened in the past as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, Saurabh. I think you are able to connect these threads very well. The thing that I learned, even though this Indus Valley thing seems like, yeah, I do this on the side, my study into history, and primarily I specialize in the Bronze Age. What happened during the Bronze Age, which is that period. And I am a researcher in innovation. This is primarily what I work in. This is what Tiny Magic also works in, breakthrough, disruptive innovation.
Hmm.
I realized that if you want to be innovative, you need to know the history. Let's say I come with a newfangled innovation
Hmm.
in any domain. I need to know what are the things that have come before this. Otherwise, what we tend to think, every idea I got, hey, this is great, fantastic. I
Yeah.
am the first guy to come up with it. Guess
Yes.
what? 15 years that has been going on and we didn't know about it. So that if you look at, so I started understanding and going in depth into every major innovation. Everything has a historical backing. That when we, let's take iPhone, the most famous example.
Hmm.
We tend to view, at least I used to do that, that hey, this is this new fully formed major breakthrough innovation. No,
Yeah.
it has been built upon several decades of innovations that preceded it, which have now resulted in the iPhone. So I realized that history is the most important science there is.
Hmm. That's true.
In other words, you don't know history, I don't think you can achieve anything in any industry
That's
except through random chance. If you want to systematically achieve something in any industry, you need to know the history.
exactly. That's so true. I mean, and that's how I think you develop what thing works, what didn't work. Because as you rightly mentioned, that sometimes when we are so much accelerator or thinks about, oh wow, I got a eureka moment, but then we got to know that this is something which has already been discovered or invented. So how you know that? Because you have to see what has happened in the past, and I think this is also helpful in cultivating your future in the ways that what already has been done, instead of putting a lot of time to reinventing the wheel, try to take those and then try to optimize it in whatever the endeavor you are trying to follow through. So that's great. So regarding the you were talking about the LinkedIn creators, or we haven't talked actually. I just mentioned about it. I have few other guests who got into the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program in different countries as well. Uh,
Cool.
what exactly it entails? Because if someone who is viewing this and maybe they are an active blogger or maybe putting a lot of posts on LinkedIn, is that the way how it works?
Yeah, so there was, I think, so there was a notification that I saw
Hmm.
in my timeline for a brief period that there is this LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program.
Okay.
I had never even heard of it prior to that. I saw on this notification, I clicked on it. And it said, oh, we are looking for LinkedIn creators who we are going to put through a 10-week program. If you are selected, we will take you through it, and here is how you apply.
Hmm.
And there was a form that said,
Okay.
and I, from what I understood at that time, they were looking for people who are also creating short videos.
Got it.
For some reason, LinkedIn thought that short videos are important.
Hmm.
I think they seem to prioritize that also in their algorithms. And now I have been creating 3-minute videos on LinkedIn since 2018 as part of my 3-minute Thursday series, as I called it, which is interestingly about books, which you love, right? So
Yes.
I created videos of the 50 most important books that impacted my life. So, as part of my submission, I said, this is what I have done.
Okay. Okay. So that it's a good segue about that 3 minute speech. So I was looking at some of the videos. First of all, for the people who are watching or listening to this, these are amazing. I mean, first of all, these are 3 minutes, so these are bite sized. And I think you are running some TMT summit in 2023, and you mentioned that since 2018 you are doing that. The good part is that the way how you communicate and provide the message is why a certain thing happened, or maybe a storytelling approach which is always make people to listen more, and then you try to provide that principles or concepts around it with maybe some of the graphics and those things which you are teaching. I think those are pretty impactful. And you have,
Thank you.
and I think you have a YouTube channel as well in your Tiny Magic company. So I would really appreciate everyone to go there and subscribe to make sure, because you guys are doing an amazing
Thank
job in
you.
that case. Yes. So that being said, if you would like to elaborate a bit about your company, Tiny Magic, how you came up with this idea, and what is your philosophy and vision for this organization?
Yeah, thank you, Saurabh. We've been at it now for 8 years. The germ of the idea came from my co-founder.
Hmm.
So he made Kumaran, who I think you have already interviewed.
Yes.
He came up with this thought that, hey, a number of us, and I could attest to that experience as well, go through soft skills training programs, right? Leadership, communication, storytelling, negotiation, many things.
Yeah.
And then what happens? So you attend the workshop, and then you are pretty much expected to apply that into your own life,
Yes.
which is actually the hard part, and you don't receive much support from that. There are action learning and things like that, but those are not effective in helping you apply those principles that you have learned into your job or your personal life. This was the observation that Kumaran made. So we started working in that area. So what should we do? Right? Now the other insight that, so this is the observation, which is the starting point, I would say, of the methodology we created, which we call HIPOHA, high performance happily achieved. And the acronym was also coined by Kumara. He came up with this HIPOHA, which is
Hmm.
kind of catchy and
Yes.
evokes curiosity. So we use that. So By then, I was already several years into my habit formation journey through the tiny habits method of Professor B.J. Fogg. I am one of his earliest students. He launched it in December 2011, and I have been a student of his since March 2012. And I've actually completed 10 years of my tiny habits journey, which I started with 2 push-ups after brushing teeth. Today, many people are surprised that I can actually do 60 push-ups at one go. I did it today also.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm a 55-year-old man, and I might not look like somebody who can do 60 push-ups at one go. And I do a number of fitness things through that. So I realized that routinization, right? If you can take these principles that you learn and make them into routines and habits, much like brushing teeth, it will stick with you. So we combined these 2 things and started delivering programs in a 120-day format. That is, we will start with teaching principles like any other workshop would do, but follow through with a habit formation, which also allows you to change the mindset, which is what is the other blocker we observe. That is one of the reasons why you don't apply what you learned is also your own mindset. Oh, whatever they said is nice, that worked in their context, but it may not work in mine because you don't know how to translate that principle into your context, right? So we started doing this. And then I've already spoken about it, that we did hit a crisis of sorts, in the sense there is a fail camp video that I did around the 5th year anniversary of Tiny Magic. As we started going down this journey, we realized that we are positioned ourselves in the leadership, communication, that type of market. And then because in the 3rd year of our business, we actually had a huge loss, and that put us in a existential crisis because we are completely bootstrapped. Should we continue or not? Can I make the next payroll? What do I do? That type of situation. And then again, as a lover of books, you will like this particular story. So I have now, as an older person, I might not have done this when I was younger, and because of that, I might have lost many opportunities. I started talking to a lot of people. My friends, my colleagues, experts in sales, marketing, anybody who will come across, I'll tell them, hey, this is what's happening, what can I do? And everybody was talking about, hey, maybe your sales is a problem, you should hire a salesperson type of thing. And in my career, I started as a technical person and I became a account manager, P&L leader when I went to America first through Cognizant. I started as an account manager and eventually wound up as a practice head before I came. So I run $100 million practice. So I couldn't quite accept that the lack of salesperson was the problem. So I was like casting about as to what is the mistake we are making. And luckily, I managed to read Positioning by Al Rice and Jack Trout. I don't know if you have read it.
No, not yet.
You and your readers must read it.
Okay. Can you spell it again?
Yeah. It's the title of the book is Positioning.
Okay.
So they are the inventors of the word positioning and the concept of position.
Okay.
They are legendary people in the world of marketing. Al Rice and Jack Trout.
Okay.
Right? Al Rice and Jack Trout. You can Google it and include a snippet in your podcast.
Yes.
So I read that book, and then that's when I realized this positioning problem, right? In the leadership, soft skills, communication world, if you are looking to do a program, who are you going to call? Certainly not Tiny Magic. Even though we have a very innovative methodology. But then every training company will say they have an innovating methodology also. So we were not positioned. So then we realized that, hey, with the technology background that Kumaran and I have, I mean, as a global CIO and global head of innovation at Cognizant, I had done two $1 billion transformations without, it's using frugal approaches, right? So we thought maybe we will shift our attention to digital transformation and digital disruption. And again, thanks to the TMT series that I was doing, which was merely, hey, this book created this impact for me, and then this is how I applied it in my life. To do that series, I had to do a lot of rereading of the same book again.
Same book again, yeah.
Because I had to connect the correct dot and only explain one or two concepts, not the whole book. I didn't want to do the whole book. And through that research that I was doing for TMT, I developed some breakthrough ideas on how to do disruptive innovation. Which is the first video I started on LinkedIn, Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen.
Yeah.
Just to do that video, I had to do enough research. I realized some breakthrough insights about disruptive innovation. That and few more ideas. So the other key idea that Kumaran came up with was what he calls fractal skills. I'm sure he would have spoken about it in his interview with you, right? And he has an elaborate theory on what are fractal skills and what that is. But for me to explain in a storytelling kind of thing, I think of them as Lego blocks, which my daughter plays with all the time. So imagine that all the soft skills in the world can be broken down to their component parts, like Lego blocks. So you learn these Lego blocks and you can assemble any kind of higher order soft skill. So you can learn these fractal skills quickly and keep practicing it through, this is why we call it fractal routines. Through routines and habit formation, you get the higher order skill. And each Lego block is now applicable in many different soft skills. Much like a Lego block can be used in many different structures.
Yeah.
And that is the subject of our patent, actually. Fractal routines is what we have filed a patent for. Not to keep the knowledge behind the firewall, but to gain credibility that this is something that is new. We haven't yet got the patent. It's still pending. But we filed that. So this is at a high level. And when I tell people who are not very much into innovation and things like that, I ask them this question. Have you taken a Uber? Most people that I talk to, they have done it, right? So I ask them, can you appreciate what happened between how you used to ride taxi cabs and now? Do you see the difference? Yes. I'm not talking about today's Uber, where, especially in India, it takes 4 cancellations before you can go anywhere. But the original Uber did give you that delightful experience. So I tell them, look, what if we can help you do that sort of a disruptive transformation in your own process, business, function, system, job, anything? So that last 30-second bit that I've just said, you can say is the elevator pitch of what we do.
Basically, okay. So basically, you're just trying to help people to create innovation in such a way that helps their businesses and from one level to another, whether it's maybe a digital transformation or overall organizational transformation in terms of maybe a different ways of how you try to give these concepts, right? You just mentioned. And that's amazing. Actually, few things I would like to kind of break it down or unwrap what you mentioned. And this is something which I always like with leaders like you and try to reinstate the fact that the people who are viewing or listening, that first, obviously, you should be having a company of thinkers who try to understand. So as you mentioned that you and Kumaran try to kind of brainstorm of the problems, right? What are the needs? What are the problem solving skills? And what are the gaps at this time in our educations, in the way how people would like? Because you always get kind of a lot of good vibes and a lot of brain. I don't know what other things you would be in a better way to comprehend, but You like mindset, you like, oh wow, what a story, but then there's no execution. So you try to create that, and brought it into a fruition. Obviously you had some dip, but in startups or any company where everything is a green, you may have, and that is the time when the actual persistence and your character and perseverance comes into the picture, when the things are not going as the way it's supposed to, how you still sail through or make some tough decisions. And then obviously right now, you read some books, you rewrite. I mean, that is something which I do as well. Some of the books you mentioned about the tiny habits. I don't know, have you read Atomic Habits, which is also one of the pretty popular book these days, which
Yes.
also in the same like how
Yes.
you don't have to kind of really think big, do small things which obviously have a snowball impact to get from that perspective. That being said, at this point, when I try to kind of maybe go back to your cognizant days. So you mentioned that you've been in the United States for some time, and then you went back. And I was reading some of your decisions about the watermelon effect, and those things, like how exactly you make those decisions, and with your spouse about coming back to India and all. uh, so when certain people make decisions, and this is something I think you have a lot of time in your life, what is the advice you got in terms of taking decisions? There are always people have analysis paralysis, and they make decisions and then they aren't sure, they kind of procrastinate and all. What is your aspects as a leader, as you have taken decisions in your executive position as well in Cognizant or elsewhere? What is one piece of advice maybe your mentor or coach gave you, which you still go through and then give it to your mentees?
Yeah, great question. There are two parts to this. One, that watermelon effect, I think
Mhm.
that particular problem is the meltdown I was experiencing.
Mhm.
Even though that particular time was a meltdown, after that, there are many times I have failed what seems like major set of problems, like the existential crisis we
Yes.
faced.
Yes.
And the advice that the mentor gave, which
Mhm.
still holds, when you see a massive problem like that, choose one particular subset or one sliver and solve it. That gives you momentum and confidence, and then you can go after the big one. Generally, what I have seen before that watermelon effect, when you look at the problem, it paralyzes you because you don't know where to start. This seems at that time, like I say in my post, I used to come home and cry every day
Mhm.
because I felt helpless. And my wife also, even though she's one of the smartest people I know, she didn't have experience in dealing with the type of crisis that I was going through. So I was really stuck. And I think one of the things that was keeping me like that was this massive weight on my head about all the problems.
Mhm.
And the only thing I could see in my life was problems. In fact, I
Yeah.
tell my wife that I didn't even see the positive in my wife's extraordinary support. Right? It's possible that some other wife might have walked out. What is
Mhm.
this guy comes home and cries every day? And we were just married a year
Mhm.
and a half prior to that. So I failed to look at the positive things. So I think one of the biggest lessons I have learned, and many mentees come to me, is to, hey, when you don't think that everything is going wrong, there are positive, there are silver lining in even in the darkest of clouds. So you derive energy from that one. Second, you go through a sliver of the problem and try to solve that. This is okay. So this is one part. The second part about decision. If you take that watermelon, I was trying to convince my wife to go back. I was evaluating yes or no, stay here or go back. Later on, I found that I never make decisions like that. I always have two or three things that I'm evaluating. And I would try to make sure that all the two or three are equally strong, not one I have made up my mind about one thing and I will choose one decoy option just to feel good that I have compared.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I try to choose two to three, minimum two to three that I would consider. Now, I am happy to say that this particular idea has been covered by the Heath brothers, who I am a big fan of in their book,
Mm-hmm.
Decisive. In fact, they say this in their first part of their framework of decision making, that you always consider two or three equally good options when you make a decision. So I think we tend to make a binary decision, like I was doing. Do I do this or not? Do I go here or not? And I think in those kinds of decisions, you tend to make poor decisions. And I was about to make one poor decision of coming back to India. Had I made that decision, none of what I accomplished after that would have ever happened.
Yes.
My life would have been completely different. So it was a very important moment in my life. And the third lesson is seek help, which is why I didn't do that. Stupid. I was struggling, crying every day. Why can't I call someone? So that is the third aspect of decision making. Can you not consult somebody? Yes, they will give you their own opinion, but you have another perspective, right? Which is what we don't have. We have only our perspective.
Yes.
Which leads, so yeah, let them say what they think. It's not necessary that what they say you have to execute. Like this existential crisis in Tiny Magic, I spoke to so many people and collected so many different perspectives. All of them were not useless, but the thing was that help me keep the focus on this issue and keep thinking more and more, right? As people come up with ideas, maybe you don't use that idea directly, but it leads to some other idea in your head. So it's very important to keep that conversation going.
Yes, I think that's a pretty good points you made, and which is something which I also try to inculcate in my mission. And this is again, as I mentioned before, we hit record, is that in our podcast also it's about connection, right? This is the primary aim, which try to reach out to the people, understand what makes them drive in a certain way to achieve success. So as you mentioned that you had your impact, and just in case if people are perplexed about what is this watermelon effect, you can go to Sukumar's LinkedIn profile, or maybe the Tiny Magic channel, and then search for that effect. You will get to know what we are talking about. And you mentioned that decision making is also pretty much you have to see what is the next best step. And this is something which I've learned, that there are so many things. It's very easy to get inundated with a lot of confusions and decisions. What is my 10th or 11th step? Not everyone thinks like a player in the chess, that they have to think about 50 or 60th step from now onwards. Just to take a start, take a one best step, and then try to see, as you mentioned, that we have to take a momentum. And then, and important thing is the connection or networking. And this is something, it's so profound impact in my case is, as you mentioned, that try to seek help, or even if you're not seeking help, try to broadcast what you're doing. Because the more you tell people, by default, human beings are helpful in nature. And one of the things which I have seen in the example, that if, for example, if you're saying that I'm looking for a job, can you help me out? Then maybe Sukumar would be like, yes, definitely, good for you. I'll see. But if I say I'm looking for a designing job, I have 5 years of experience and specifically looking for maybe a New York region, then automatically Sukumar's brain would be that New York's designer. Okay, I know maybe a couple of people who I know directly, or maybe they may know someone. So that helps. Like that gives a further motion to the progress, and that's why I always try to believe in that. Be specific. What you.
Excellent.
Yes. So, what do you think about those? Be specific and be direct.
Excellent. That's excellent advice.
Yes.
So that's the fourth thing, right? Broadcast, be specific. And many people come to me. I mean, because I talk about these books, they know I like books. So people know about you only when you publish what you are thinking. Even if you don't have to write a treatise on a book you read, you can merely say, I read this book, it's nice.
Yes.
It's good enough. So the people know, okay, you have read this book, good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you say, hey, I got this insight, better. You say, hey, I got this insight and I did this, even better. You don't have to write, like I said, an essay, but you can write few lines. I think that I find that you made a great point. I would say the publishing of it, and I think I learned this, you can say the hard way, is that it clarifies your own thinking.
Yeah.
As you and I are speaking today, because you have decided to talk to me and you're actually publishing, the way you're articulating the thoughts and maybe rephrasing, adding to what I'm saying, it's helping me clarify my own thoughts, which is something that I wouldn't have done if I didn't speak to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this idea that you will speak and putting yourself out in the public seems a little bit risky, but you know what? I might say some stupid thing, but I am a human being. I'm allowed to say some stupid things, right? Everything that I say is not going to be, I am not expecting to be the next Einstein or Newton, right? I have read some things, I have practiced some things. I will tell you some things that I learned.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I do it, the universe rewards me with 50x more things just because I decided to share what stupid things I did or what insights I developed.
Uh, that is so
So,
profound. Yeah. Yeah. Complete your thought.
thank
Sorry.
you. No, that's what I'm saying. So, like I said, just to do the TMT and the research that I did, I developed these insights also based on what people were responding.
Yeah.
So many
Exactly.
times the community gives you these triggers that, I will give you one example, right? I do this gratitude thing. I talked about it because BJ Fogg
Mhm.
taught me that idea. And I said, hey, I do this. And one person asked, hey, why don't you do this in the company?
Mm.
One of the people that follow my series. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Why can't I do that? The next day, we started gratitude circles in Tiny Magic.
Mm.
And every meeting in Tiny Magic starts with a gratitude circle. And we have been at it now for more than 3 years.
Mm.
So
That's
2019 September we started. So we completed 3 years. So things like so the universe rewards you when you say something. I find I hope more people take to it and start. And don't do this because you want to be the next YouTube star or the LinkedIn star. Just because you want to just for your own clarification of your own thoughts. Just writing will change you. I guarantee you that it will change your mind,
yes.
even if nobody looked at it.
I think these are profound things which you mentioned, which recalls me that I was reading that Abraham Lincoln used to read the newspaper pretty loud. I mean, and one guy was asked like, "Why you're reading? I mean, you can read in quiet space and all." And he said that I read because if I just read through, then I'm using one sense like maybe my sight. But if I speak, then I'm also trying to listen what I'm saying. So it has a
Wow.
two times impact on that. So those are some of the things, as you
Agree.
mentioned, which is totally relatable, is that you have your fair share of vulnerability. I mean, when I started, I wasn't sure, but I said, I don't care if I'm not perfect. I'll go along. And I know people who always encourage me to reach out because what is my mission on this? I'm pretty clear. I have to reach out to the people, have connections, and it also helps me to develop myself in these in this connections and communication. So you are totally bang on target, and I see a lot of people who have talent, but there is no execution, and this is something which I'm learning over the period of time. I have few friends who are doing startups. They procrastinate, and now the only thing they have a regret in a way that I could have started this much earlier. So this is the thing they always mention. And in one of the podcasts I learned also pretty profound information is that how do you know that you are doing things right is, or you're not missing out something. The person said always talk to the people who are maybe a decade generation older than you and ask them what is their regret in their life, and see if the
Ah,
regret they which they would like, if they would have been in my age, then you try to accomplish that. For example, if you are a traveler, like I also like traveler, I think you also, I do hiking and
yeah.
I'm a marathon runner as well. So those are the things which if you would like, you are just trying to delay, and then you get to know one person who said I would have done when my knees really support, at that time I could have run.
Yeah.
Okay, so today is the time. Before you get also into this regret zone, why don't you try today?
That's a great insight. Yeah.
So
It's
so
fantastic.
yes, thank you. So yeah, so now going towards a part of your uh, cognizant career, and which is something which a lot of people ask, like they ask, like when you reach out to the leaders who are in different situations, positions, what are common things which have brought them from from a particular level to the executive level, and executive level have their own fair share of responsibilities and accountabilities in that terms. So what's your perspective of life, who the people who would like to climb the corporate ladder and get into those C-suite situations? What are the things they have to be really mindful of, and what are the myths? Something like maybe say, oh, this is a wrong way of looking at it. This is not. So couple of things which you can kind of give people a way which they can help them to have the leadership skills, and couple of things which may be very much prevalent, that you have to do XYZ things in leadership, but you think that these are not the real things. These are just maybe a eyewash.
It's a great question. I'm not
Loaded.
sure. I No,
Yeah.
it's fine. I'm going to give you a perspective,
Yes.
but it is not an easy question to
Yes.
answer, and by no means my answer is going to fully satisfy your curiosity about this. But I'm going to try. This comes from a field that's called scenario planning. This was developed by Shell
Hmm.
during the. They were successfully able to predict the oil crisis that happened 40, 50 years ago when oil prices crashed or something like that. And they were doing this scenario planning and it became very popular. So it's a very popular technique in knowledge management, which is a field that I've worked in a lot. I was the chief knowledge officer of Cognizant. So I'm very passionate about knowledge management. I came across this then. Imagine if you're in management, you have to think in 4 quadrants.
Hmm.
Right? This is one more of this. So think on the y-axis, the risk of your outcome, low, high. On the x-axis, think the number of people working in it, low, high. Okay. Now I was making an observation that where do we traditionally work in? We work in the low we will ignore because that's niche. Low risk, low number of people working is a niche thing which I don't think is worth pursuing, or it's not going to lead to a career ladder type of thing that you're looking for, I think. So I ignore that quadrant.
Hmm.
We are mainly working in, most people working in low or high risk areas. Right? Let's say you're a P&L leader, you're delivery, you're software, anything that you're doing for an organization, you're mostly working in that right 2 quadrants. Right? Low risk, high risk, many people are working in it. And
Hmm.
as you advance in your career, you do bigger and bigger things, which the risk is higher and higher. Now, I found a problem with those 2 quadrants. The problem is this: if you fail, you're out. Because of the fact that a lot of people working in it, a lot of people know how to do it. To give you an example, let's say I messed up the project management of a large project. You're out in the sense You have failed in an area where a lot of people know how to do it. You are with me so far? There are
Yes.
exceptions to this
Mm-hmm.
rule, but this is a broad brush kind of strategy. Now, I found, what if I start working in low number of people working high risk area, which is the top left quadrant. Now, what I found interesting, and many times I found many times I have been in fact routinely work in that quadrant. Okay, so when I became account manager in client partner, there are only like 4 account managers in Cognizant at that time. Rest were all delivery people. So even though like that meltdown is happening, right in front of everybody's eyes, but nobody can see it except me. Right? If I was on the right 2 quadrants, I would have been fired. Because people know how to run but there are not many people know how to do account management, P&L, all that in Cognizant. Outside Cognizant, people may know. So then I became a regional director, practice head. Very few people doing those jobs. So I was always in this few people doing high risk.
High risk job.
Where my failures were actually seen as a positive by many people. Which is, I found, the most fascinating thing. So I became chief knowledge officer. Again, there's only one CKO in the entire company, right? In the Fortune 2000, not all had CKOs. Maybe there are 100, 200 people. So what I did, so I could do many things on my own, come up with new ideas and try it because there is no precedent. And if I were to look at many of the things that I did with an objective pass, fail, KPI criteria, did you do this kind of thing, I might have to look at many of those things as failures. But that's not how the other people see it. Because they see, hey, this person is doing something new, very different. So even though I might not have gotten the impact that I might have wanted, that was still seen as a positive by the world.
Yeah.
So now you come to Tiny Magic. What we are doing, there is only a handful of companies in the world applying this phenomenon-based learning model to disruptive innovation. So again, nobody knows how to do it. Now, if I fail, I hope we have a strong team, and I don't see total failure as a option anymore because we have passed through many existential crises and we will survive. But let's assume for the moment that I completely failed. Even then the world will look at it and say, hey, this person tried something new. So my career management advice for everybody is, which quadrant are you in?
Got it.
And when people say career ladder, they are in the right 2 quadrants. Okay. Low risk, many people working on it. High risk, many people working on it. Because to go to the top left is scary.
Exactly. I think this is a very good advice you mentioned is, first of all, just don't be, I mean, you have to take some risk, be comfortable with your failures. And as you mentioned, that if you try to be creative, innovative, and try to do something different where very less or few people are doing it, those, even if you do not get failure, I mean, the expected outcomes, that is appreciated. And obviously you have to see that if you always have to be in a comfort zone, be in the crowd, or try to stand out and do a job which is deemed high risk. But in any part, whether it's a job in your life, if you don't take risk, you will not move forward. So it totally depends on what you are looking for. So this is an amazing advice actually, that helps everyone to understand like what they would like to get out of their job or in your corporate life.
Can I interject, Saurabh?
Yes,
So the
please.
thing that I found, and I think this is the important insight that I developed, is in the left quadrant, which is the high risk, low number of people working on it, failure is an option. Whereas in the right 2 quadrants, failure is not an option.
Yes.
This is the thing to bear in mind. because you're doing something new. Nobody knows what to do. They don't even see that you've failed.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
if they see that as a failure, they say, hey, you took that risk and tried it. So the world actually rewards people who take the risk even if they fail. What the world doesn't like is failures in the other two quadrants. Because, hey, so many people are working on it. Why didn't you talk to the experts before you failed?
Yes, yes,
Whereas
yes.
here, I don't even know who to talk to.
Exactly.
Right? And I try something and I failed. I am like, great. Nobody has told me, hey, you did this stupid thing so
Yeah.
far. Even though I might have done quite a few stupid things in that quadrant, which I
Yeah.
only realize are stupid in hindsight.
Yes, exactly.
At that
And
time, I was doing it. I
mhm.
think this is so when people think about failure aversion,
Mm.
here is a zone where your failure is rewarded. That's what I'm trying to say.
Got it, got it. And I think the word which these days we say, the people who are always creative and innovative within organizations are called the entrepreneurs. And this is something
Entrepreneurs.
which
Yeah.
yeah, we are trying to develop, that within our organization also you can be having an entrepreneurial skill set by having these ideas, and that is one thing. Like, these are exactly what the skill set should be creative, innovative, take risk, be comfortable with your failures within the organization, and then you obviously will reach to the next level. So amazing. I think I'll go towards the last section. To today's discussion is about because we talk about books here. So, what are the top three books you would recommend to anyone who is trying to change their mindset to achieve whatever they would like in their life?
Obviously, my number one recommendation is the Tiny Habits book by my teacher,
Hmm.
Professor B.J. Fogg. And there is also a little bit of selfish interest, if you may all allow me.
Hmm.
One of my story is covered in that book
Okay.
in chapter 6, and that's not the reason I recommend it. I truly recommend it because it does the incalculable impact it has had on my life. I could write actually another book about it,
Oh, okay.
and I have not even done half justice even if I wrote that book. It has completely changed me in so many different ways that it's even hard for me to describe what it has done. So I'm eternally grateful to my teacher BJ Fogg, and I strongly recommend. It's a treasure trove of ideas on almost any change that you want to make in your life. I have not come across. There are very few books in my list that are packed with so much insights. Most of the business books have one or two or three insights, which is why they can be summarized very easily.
Yeah.
The rest of it is filled with case studies and things like that. That's not bad, but I'm saying most books fit into that category. So the other book that truly has impacted me in many ways about breakthrough innovation is Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma. And the third book that I would strongly recommend is Lean Startup by Eric Rice, which is again
Okay.
something that we adopted in Cognizant before the Lean Startup book was published. In fact, we had him come in and teach us the Lean Startup method, and we adopted it in this one Cognizant $1 billion transformation program. This is in 2010, when many people didn't agree or understand that a lean startup could be applicable in a large corporation. So these are the top three recommendations. Beyond this, I would say any book in the
Hmm.
TMT series, if you read, you will gain powerful insights from those books. Yeah. By far, in my opinion, the most important management book ever written is Fifth Discipline by Peter Singh.
Okay. Okay. Got it. I
It is
think.
not an easy book to read, but if there is one book that should be rated as the world's best book in the world of
Mhm.
management non-fiction, that would be that.
Okay. Perfect. That's great
But you
recommendations, and
asked me
I'll.
which are the
Yeah.
books to change your mindset, so I
Yeah.
stuck with these
Yeah.
three things.
I know there may be many books out there, but definitely and I'll try to put all those information about the books as well. But that being said, sir, thank you so much for providing your time and providing some of the perspective out there. And I think that these 1 hour is not enough. If sometimes permit, and if your time allows, maybe sometime later we can have more conversation on different aspects of life and
Sure.
career, because it's all about how
Absolutely.
we communicate. So that being said, thank you again so much for your time, and yeah, I hope all the best for your tiny magic, and all the
Thank
things
you.
which you're working as a future endeavors here.
Thank you, Saurabh. You are a fantastic interviewer. I know you did. I could see that you are going through my articles and all that. So
Okay,
there's
sure,
so much
definitely.
homework you have done, and the way you are asking these questions and how you are paraphrasing and doing this, it suggests that you have a brilliant mind within yourself. I wish you all the best with your podcast series and your career and the rest of all the other things that you're trying to do.
Sure,
All the
definitely.
best.
Thank you
And
so much.